You?
Yep, yep. We're school buddies,
Oh,
and you
Yeah,
know, one
yeah,
of the things I always remember about Carl was that music was always in his blood.
mm,
Yeah, it was always there.
yeah.
And one of the shocking moments I had was when Carl, bored in Italy, we had a school trip, and
Oh,
Carl's bored.
yeah.
He's got the bass guitar,
yeah.
and he's forgotten his first thing he said, "I forgot my amplifier." Man's vexed now, and he's sat down on the bed and he's put the bass guitar head on top of the wardrobe
Yeah.
and he played it, and he was drawing the bass on that, and the woman came from downstairs and piano, piano, quinta, piano, and it's like
Yeah, yeah, you remember that, you? Gosh,
yes, I
piano, piano.
piano, piano, and I stood there just watching like, my God, this is a moment, seminal moment, because this man is playing music. He's vexed. He hasn't got his bass. He hasn't got his
Yeah.
amplifier. But he's found a way to put
Mm,
the music out there for us to listen to. And he
Yeah.
was just playing, and Gene Alibamba was singing in the background. He's
Oh,
like,
wow.
okay,
Wow.
this is
So
where
powerhouses then. What?
yeah. See what it is on the like say a cabinet. I have a cabinet here.
Mhm.
When I learned to play bass, my dad wouldn't buy me an amplifier or my mum, so I had to use a wardrobe. If you put a bass guitar up against a wardrobe, you get that bass. It goes right through you.
Ah.
So that was one of the things that I would do if I didn't have an amp. But when the
Mm.
lady said piano, 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 I was like, man, I ain't got no piano. I've only got a
Well, you can't join in.
You remember those words? You know, I even tried to check to see what it meant.
what it meant.
Maybe we got the pronunciation wrong, but no one's ever been able to explain to me what that meant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in music, piano forte is louder. So maybe there's
Loud,
something to do with the
loud.
louder.
Possibly.
I think it's louder or softer. If you see that written on the music, where it says
Yeah.
P, it means something like to do with turning up or turning
Yeah.
down. Maybe she
Okay.
was just in slang. Maybe she just couldn't be bothered with the forte part, you know. She just said,
No, I
piano,
think
piano.
just saying it was loud.
It was
I think
loud.
it's loud, loud, loud. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, or turn down, turn down. That's
Yeah.
got to be it.
Maybe that's what
Now,
she meant.
Yeah.
So within that now, let's talk about the school experience, because when you're at school,
Right.
right? When we were at school in South
Yeah.
Hackney,
Yeah.
right? What was your experience of the school?
Well, I didn't really get much from it.
Hmm.
School. I didn't learn that much. I mean, we were bright in school. I wouldn't have dunce or nothing, but
Mm.
in terms of life, most of it I learned after school. I didn't learn
Mhm.
how to pay a bill. I didn't learn about females, moods, and how to be a husband or how to approach a job interview, how to drive a car, how to make money. I didn't learn none of that from school.
Mm.
The life skills.
Yeah, exactly. Music was a bit of a blessing because I sort of made a choice around about 15 and a half. And from I made that choice, I think I got locked in the attic one time and got in trouble for it.
God.
And then the guy, I used to get in trouble for music all the time, playing the piano or something, And the guy came and saw me in there, and he said, "What are you doing in here?" And a couple of guys had locked me in, and we had an attic in the top of our school with some musical instruments in. And
Okay.
he said you had to clean out the room. And so every day in my lunchtime, my punishment was cleaning out that attic. Now I've got asthma and there's dust everywhere.
Uh-huh.
I was really not liking that. But then I found this little room and it had guitars and all this stuff in it. It was like treasure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
the whole thing
Lot-
was turned around for me, So now from that, I was like, okay, I didn't want to come out of the room after that.
Yeah. So you cleaned it up and you got your own instruments, you got the range, you go through.
Yeah.
They never gave it to us to play with that. Right? We never had no music lessons. Your triangle.
So it was an accident, really.
Yeah,
It was an accident, really. How you
yeah,
did you
yeah.
into music? Would you say?
Well, before that happened, I went to America with my mum, and I was walking, going shopping, and you know how your mum walks off, and you're looking at the shops, and my mum had walked off, and I heard the beginning of Boogie Nights. You know that
Okay.
intro,
Yeah.
Boogie Nights, or
Yeah.
boom, 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 that bass, and
Oh, that bass.
I just stood there like, oh, what is this? And then they went Boogie Nights, and it came into a tune. And I was like, no, bring that last bit back, you know, that jazz bit.
Wow.
And so it kind of hit me. That hooked me. And then there was this guy that used to come on. First of all, when I was in New York, I never heard black music on the radio before. And that did something to me as well. Because, you know, we were from London, Hackney, and Tony Blackburn. He wasn't playing soul then. He was playing pop, and it was very much
Teddy Boy stuff.
Teddy Boys, yeah. Shawadi Wadi.
Oh,
Rolling.
gosh.
I'm sorry, I hope. Oh, sorry. I don't know if I can say these things, but what I'm trying to say is that the radio was not for us. So I'm in New York and I'm hearing black music on the radio, which is very different. And there was a jazz station, and the guy was, you know, he had a real laid-back voice, and he was like, "Yeah, this is the drive time jazz hour. We're going to be playing some Metheny." And I was like, gosh, what is this? And they would play this song by Pat Metheny called San Lorenzo every day. And I sat there and I listened to that song, and that was it. I made up my mind from that point that was a calling, because I could hear in between what the drummer was doing, the bass player was doing. I wasn't just listening to the song overall like a fan. I could hear things in the background, and I could hear the tempo, like where the click would be. And so I knew that there was something going on with me, because when I said to other people, can you hear this? Can you hear that? They'll be like, no. So I said, okay, I got something. Okay. So when I came to London, I kept on getting in trouble for playing the piano in the hallways. And sometimes I'd be in a classroom in my lesson, and someone would go and bang the piano, and I'd hear them say, Macintosh! in a class. And that notorious, you know? So, but I had made my mind up that I wanted to do music, and I joined a group we made a group up called Uptown People. Me and Linda Carrier's brother. So I kept up my practicing so that I could be in the band and be a valuable member. And so her brother Lawrence was a guitarist, and I was a bass player. Actually, I was a guitarist, but because he was so good at playing guitar, I had to just settle on the bass. You know?
Of course,
yeah. So, but it was cool. It was good because I learned from him, you know, and you know, we made songs together. And I remember Gina Bambo. She was in our class or in our school, and you know, she was singing, and you know, we kind of mingled together, and a whole bunch of musicians was coming out of that. And there's a story which I told you before, which I actually had a crush on there. I had a huge crush.
I didn't think you were going to say that one, but you know, go ahead, because that's a classic. That's a classic.
Yeah. See, what happened was I used to move with her, you know, after school and in the dinner time, and we used to be talking about music, and I was crushing badly, and eventually I made my little move. I can't remember how we said it. We was joking around. I must have said, yeah, well, you know, if you come out with me, that wouldn't happen to you. And she went, you? Oh, sorry, that wouldn't happen. No way. You're too short, Carl. I mean, you know. You know. Yeah, she killed me. She killed me, man. And I was like, yeah, you know, because I'm a bit short, you know. And I was dying. I went home, man. I was heartbroken. She killed me. But that weekend when I went home, I wrote 3 songs. So I think the first one was a really deep song. It's actually on the internet. It's called No Stranger to Darkness.
Okay. Oh,
and then,
She really did trouble you, Nick.
What? Really? Lord have mercy.
And then
Ah,
the next one was called Dial 999. All right.
Mhm.
And then that's even deeper still, right? This is an emergency. And
Oh,
then the next
ah,
one was called Choose Me. All right.
yeah.
So when we did the loose ends thing, it kind of kicked off with Steve doing all the writing. And he was the main man, because Steve was, gorgeous. He was coming out uni. He was a model. He was a man about the world. And, he had everything going for him. So he was the guy all the songs was coming from. But he kind of ran out of ideas just after we got signed. They were demoing us, looking for singles. And he just ran out of ideas. So Richard Branson had put us on his boat, which is a studio. And but record companies do this to you. They like to show you the big life, to show you this is what you're going to have.
Funny enough, Carl, you saying that just before you came on. Me and Natasha were just touching on that. And that, that side you're going to share with us a little bit, because obviously, you know that side of the business, and I don't know if you can explain a little bit of that with us, as to what your experiences were.
So let's get back onto the boat now.
Yeah, onto the boat. And then you can tell us.
We're on the boat, and we're making. Well, this boat is actually moored up in Little Venice, which is Edgware Road, around the back of Edgware Road.
Yes.
And it's just like a normal wall, but the wall has got little doors in it, and when you come out the other side, you're actually the River Thames. You're right on the River Thames. And the boat is like a normal boat, but when you go down in it, it's actually a studio.
Okay.
You walk through the little galleyway. What is it, a galley, what they call it? And then you get to the back, and there's a studio right there, like a console room. And the room that you walk through to get to it is the live room. So it was a proper studio. Lovely, lovely studio.
Yeah.
And but Steve was doing, his jazz thing. Steve, he was the main writer, and he was doing mainly jazz instrumentals that had some singing at the back, at the end of it for Jane. And so he only had a handful of those, which we used up real quickly, and the record company didn't really go for any of them as a single. So we had to have other writers come in, because we signed this deal, which was 3 singles and an album. So you had to have 3 singles. One of them had to get into the top 40 to trigger the album part. If you didn't get a top 40, you didn't get to make the album. You got it. Right. So so we had some writers come in, and they wrote a song for us called "We've Arrived," and the song went to 38, which just got over the line. And so we were making an album. Now, when we got to the album, Steve had run out of ideas and stuff.
Yeah.
And let me just go back a little bit, because when we got signed, Steve, he was such a guy about town that he was on tour with the Jam. Because Steve could play trumpet, could play piano. He was a model. He had like 17 O levels and A levels and a degree in music and drama. Yeah. And he was, the guy. As a matter of fact, Steve really learned well how to engage, with the establishment, and how to, go down the pub with them and talk business, and which I couldn't do none of that. I had none of that refinery in me. I was a real yard man, and if I walked into a pub, I would just walk straight out again, because them days there, when a black man walked into a pub, it was quiet. And the eyes would be on me. I'd walk straight out. But him would be like, "What you having?" So I'd be like, "What, you gonna stay here?" I'm like, "Come on." I mean, he was a guy, One time we even had an interview. Not interview. We had a meeting with Steve while he was having his haircut. I don't know if you can imagine what that's like. We're in Fulham. Fulham Road, and this guy, he's got the thing over him, and he's sitting there. A guy's cutting his hair, putting his fade in. He's got the hat top, and Steve's standing. He's saying, "Yeah, we're going to be signing on Monday. The lawyers have been down. and we're gonna fly to. I was like, what? We're
Wow.
sitting there. I was so like, wow, I'm in this conversation with this dude. Other people were looking. It was brilliant.
Yeah.
So anyway, so Steve was the guy. He run out of ideas by the time we got to the album stage, and we while he was away on tour with the Jam, I had spent some time with Jane, because it was just me and her after we signed the deal. He wasn't there, and I showed her these songs, "Choose Me" and "Da 999." And these ideas that I had. I didn't tell her how I came about writing them. Didn't tell her the Gene Addy Bambo story at all. But, you know, but we didn't have no idea. So suddenly she started singing the "You Can Pick Me Up," whatever. And I started playing the guitar. And then Steve was like, "What chords you playing there?" And I showed him the chords, and then that was it. Bang. That was how we started getting into the Carl McIntosh side of Loose End, you know?
Right.
But it was still very much, I was the bass player, and I was very much still in the background. But how I started to sing was interesting as well, because when we went to America, Jane didn't get to come over because her passport wasn't ready. So we went 10 days before her, and someone had to do the demos for the new musicians, because we had musicians come in. So we had to re-record the demos, and in re-recording the demos, I had to kind of sing the actual parts for the new musicians. And that's kind of how it came about that I would sing. So before that, I was just a bass player, guitarist. So when Jane came over, they were like, Carl's going to be singing a verse on this, and Carl's going to be singing a verse on that. And she was like, oh, okay, well, so it was kind of like we were finding our way. Yeah. And I was starting to do a little bit more for the band. So started out as a bass player, and then I was bass and guitar, and then now I'm bass, guitar, and vocal. But all the time I was playing percussion and background vocals with Black Chalice, which was a reggae group that Stephen Smith was in.
Yeah. Oh my.
Yeah, so Stephen Smith, I think he still does his dub business.
Yes.
Him and Joe, they got a sound system and hardcore, Rastaman.
Abishanti. Abishanti. Part 2.
Yeah. I'm sure they've curtailed their traveling, but they're certainly big in Europe, aren't they? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Around Japan, all over.
Yeah.
So we were doing the Carl McIntosh type of songs there. Tell Me What You Want was another song that I wrote before I got into Loose Ends, and all of those songs became singles for the first album. So it looked like I was in the band to stay, and but as I say, there was a lot of prestigious moments there. We were young, and when you're young, impressionable, record company was flying us places. The boat in itself was a big deal. I mean, we didn't have no money to get there, let alone,
enjoy the trappings.
Yeah, exactly. We didn't get no first class flights, but as time went on, the cars that picked you up to take you to the airport
looked a bit better.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it started off with the Cavalier, and then went from the Cavalier. Where did it go from? It went Cavalier, and then it went Granada. I think it was a Granada or something.
Oh, Granada, the big thing.
Yeah, and then from the Granada, it sort of went to a Mercedes. When you get the Mercedes, the Mercedes 500. It was incredible. These little things.
But were you struck? Would you say? I mean, obviously, being so young, and being told, you've hit America, and this is how you're going to be. Would you say you were starstruck and didn't really think about the side of it? Yeah.
Absolutely. Like, because when you're in a record label, you behave yourself. You can't just go off and say whatever you want to say on an interview. You can't say anything controversial or anything. You have to behave yourself. Record companies paying for everything, and they are king. They so you're just a little kid being swept along. But
Yeah.
I have to say that one of the things that probably broke us up in the end was continuous touring. Continuous.
Okay.
It was the Cavalier that used to drive us around to these little radio stations that really that did us in, because this is a little racism as well, you know, because we didn't know anything about how the racism in the industry worked. We knew it was there, but we didn't want to talk about it because we knew it was powerful and it could hurt us.
Right.
But when it came to releasing records and waiting to see what chart number you would be in the midweek, that's where you get it. Because in order for you to go up the charts, a couple of things had to happen. So the first thing was you needed national airplay. And national airplay only happens with one station. And that station is Radio 1. And guess what? Radio 1 don't play black music. So
yeah. But
there you go.
Yes, that's very true. Yeah.
Right? So let me just break it down for you. Radio 1 is the only radio station that has transmitters all over the world, and especially ongoing but terrestrial radio in Wales, Ireland, Scotland, and England. So if they play your record at 7 o'clock in the morning, like a whole 7 million people or 20 million people have heard it. So bands like Culture Club, they put their record out, and their record would come on in the morning at Radio 1, and like millions of people have heard it, and they'll play it maybe twice a day. Same label, right? Virgin. Our record, sorry, not playing that. So we now would have to get in the car, the Cavalier, and drive to Radio Chiltern, Radio Essex, Radio. It just killed us, because what happens is your time for playing, practicing together, and being musical is limited now, because you're having to spend a good third of your time promoting in the way that it doesn't serve you in the end. I mean, it does. It gets record radio stations your product, and because they had you on their program, they're going to play your record. But regionally, it's such a long way round, you know. And then when we got to Scotland, we did some PAs in Scotland, and by the time we got there, we were getting really good at it. And the Gallup poll.
The Gallup poll. Yeah.
They actually said that they were going to weight our record because we were in the area, and they saw a spike in sales of our record. But I thought, well, isn't that what promotion is supposed to do? So nah, you must have hyped the record. So hype what? Then Dial 999, they wouldn't play it because they said it had a siren in it, and people on the road, they might be disturbed by the siren, and it might cause traffic to pull over. And it was, you know, one excuse after the
other. Excuses. So really and truly, by the time, if you were to make it anywhere, they'd already knackered you out by having to tour and everything.
I think, when I say tour, I don't mean getting on a nice bus, you know, them big coaches, sleeper. No, I'm talking about a blue Ford, a Vauxhall Cavalier.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'm in therapy for that.
So, I mean, you know what? You know, people would not, you know, you hear stories about how ruthless it is in the music industry, right? And you kind of think to yourself, well, you would think that it's moved forward slightly, but now that you're saying that, how hard you had to work to even get recognized, right? Okay, so let's move it a little bit forward. And they've now recognized you, okay? What happens? You know, what happens then? Do they
what's
then?
The transition
what's
now?
The transition at that point? You've now.
All right. So let me just say that our recognition did not come about by them helping us at all. Not one iota. No. were one of the luckiest groups ever. See, something happened called pirate radio.
Oh yeah.
Pirate radio, when we got back from doing our, I think it was A Little Spice, the album, funny thing that happened, it was a bad thing and a good thing. The album wasn't even mixed yet, but someone had sent, well, we sent back the mixes from Philadelphia, and because we recorded the albums in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
When we sent back the mixes, someone at Virgin had leaked the mixes to a couple of DJ friends. DJ friends run off cassettes and whatever, and circulated the material on pirate radio. So by the time we got back in the car coming back from the airport, the album doesn't even have a release date, and I'm hearing the tracks that I've just recorded on the radio. I'm thinking, like, how's this happened? But it sounded wicked, and the people were loving it. In fact, one guy played "Choose Me" twice in a row, and so I'm British, right? So we just got all that from the fallout from the pirates, because the pirates were, in our absence, had gathered steam. And when we got back, I mean, national radio was playing, was following pirates. Captor radio was playing stuff that pirates were playing. And the funny thing about that, the irony that is attached to that, is that pirate radio came about because the lack of black music, urban music, whatever you want to call it.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And in the end, they kind of gave it to a white radio station, Kiss. Right? So, I mean, they gave it the choice as well, but you can't really say that what they gave the choice was fair in comparison, because you could be driving down the street, you put on Choice, you turn the corner, Choice is gone. So, I mean, in London, this is, so that was really unfair. I didn't like that. But this is the game is
so
really...
the pirate studio, the pirate radio stations really helped bring you guys to the surface, really. My word.
Well, two things happened. It's an amazingly lucky story, because the pirates were doing it for us here. Radio 1 still didn't like us, but America, they loved Hanging on String. And I kind of jumped there from the first album to the second album. What it was, we got signed to MCA because of one of our songs at the end of it, where Jane sang. It was an instrumental, one of Steve's instrumentals, but at the end I sing "Ah Baby, Whoa Baby," and Jane comes in, she sings on top of that. And this guy that signed us, he loved that. He signed us because of that jazz number. So he's thinking he signed this little jazz group from London, and he came to see us in the studio when we were making our second album. And when he came to the studio, we were making Hanging on a String. So he came in and he listened for a second and he went, "Oh my God." So then I heard this big noise out in the passageway. It was him. He was on the phone, jumping up and down, saying, "We got a hit. We got a hit. This is going to be a hit." So he was telling his record label that this is the biggest thing he's ever heard, and blah, blah, blah. So, the Americans were like, well, whoa. Yeah. The other thing is that we were trying to get record deals in America, and everyone turned us down on the first album. And he was the only guy that signed us. So it made it even better, because everyone had turned us down. And now here we are with this big hit. So it was like, we found a great group. And then England, we had the pirate thing going on. The pirates then moved to Birmingham and Nottingham and all the territories where black folks were. They were playing our music like every day. If I get in the cab, if I go in the shop.
I was playing it. I know I was playing it.
Well, thank you. I mean, but then the record company, we didn't really see much of a difference with the record company. In fact, I would say that we haven't really, it's hard to say, because they gave us a little wage. It was like £70 a week. And then it went up to, eventually it went up to £400 towards the end.
Yeah, yeah.
That was as far as it went, and it's each as well. So, and then our manager got the same, and they called that advance against royalties.
Yeah.
These royalties never came. I mean, we never earned no royalties because our royalty rate was so low. I mean, I think we was on 3p a unit. So on our contract, if we sold an album, we would get 3p out of it. So,
I mean, that's just so ridiculous. Was that something that you guys signed, or was that just what it was?
That
then?
was the system.
And that was just the parity. You know, this is what we'll pay you lot.
Yeah.
As opposed to paying something like Culture Club or
that's why Prince left his record label. Because you know,
I'll tell you a funny story about that. We had a manager called Granville Williams, and black guy. He managed my first group, Uptown People, and he was calling the record company every day trying to get a better deal on the table for us. He was saying things like, you know, you've got to do videos with them because videos had just come out, and you can spend money on the promotions. And I think they just put the phone down on him, and then they told us, you've got a meeting on Friday. When you come in, don't bring him. And when we got there, they said, that guy is a wanker, and we are not going to talk to him no more. So if you want the deal, get rid of him. And that was how that went. So we had to make a decision right there and then.
Right there and then.
Like, sorry, Gran, you got to go. And that was Steve's decision. I'm glad it wasn't mine. Right? And Steve's like, look, you got to go. So we, when we were doing our first record, In the Sky, this is before the album.
Yeah.
This is when we were just signing. I'm going back now. We met The Real Thing, who produced our first song.
Yeah.
They had two snazzy, long-haired rock. They look like rock stars. You know, they were their managers. So we went, okay. So we went with them. They looked like they fit what Virgin would, you know,
follow through.
We ended up going with the white managers, and not saying that, you know, that they were bad. They were good management. They were very on the case and stuff.
Okay.
But you know, how black people, we always want more. We want, you know, to see if you can give us something. Can we advance from where we are? But you know, with the record company, it was very hard. You know, we had to fight them for everything. Like, for instance, they would put us with photographers, just unknown people who we didn't know. So after a while, we learned to get around that by adding up how much they would be spending on our photographs. And we said, look, how much are you spending to make these photographs and these album covers? And each photo session was costing about $5,000. It wasn't coming to us. It was going to a photographer, you know?
Yeah.
So eventually we was like, well, why don't we go to the desert and take one photographer and do the album cover, the press pictures, the whole thing in one location, and then we wouldn't have to pay for all of these different photo sessions.
With that money,
Right. And then they said, we'll think about it. And then they okayed it. So then that's how we got to do shots where we were in the desert and, you know, doing all that stuff.
That album cover,
So I'm going to move forward a little bit, Carl. So I'm going to say to you, right, on the basis, I mean, we haven't got enough time, right?
And you know this.
But, right, on the Black Business Recommendation, I'm going to invite you so we can just sit down, kick foot, and talk, But for now, what are you doing? What's happening? Because I hear say things are in the pipeline. Man's writing and things. So what's going on? What's the flavors coming?
Yeah, I've got an album coming out, and this album, excuse me, this album is not so much on the love thing. It's more about Africa. It's more about you know, things that are going on in the world. And I always wanted to write. It's a bit like my What's Going On album, you know.
I was thinking that. I was thinking, my man's out there now.
it's very very Marvin. And, you know, with all the oohs and ahs and all that stuff in the background, you know, I love all that stuff. Because that's where I started being background vocalist for Steve's group, you know, Black Cherries. So, you know, it's one of those things that I can do, you know. So I've been writing, though, for a long time, since I did one album in '93 and didn't come out because it had some samples on it. And after that, I stopped writing. I worked with Jane and Steve in 2007. We tried to come back together again, but it didn't work out. And but I kept on writing. And when I looked at all the songs I'd been writing, I mean, it's like 30 years of writing. It's almost more time in between the last album and this album than there was between my date of birth and the first. You know? So I've got ideas coming out the wazoo, and it's like it's really good to. But what's really good is the events that have happened over the last couple of months have really the topics are very. We feel it. The wokeism that is in us. We are now in a revolution, whether we like it or not. Information. And we're woke, you know. It's very hard to sing love songs. You know, songs, but not just "I love you, you love me." You almost want to put the little caveat in there, like "Don't you ever try to change me." You know, that's the type of love song that I would like to write, you know?
Absolutely.
So when are you looking to put out some of your new music?
I haven't got a release date yet, but I'm scheduled for, I would say, probably 3/4 of the way. So just a matter of maybe about 6 weeks, it should be finished. I mean, I always say this, but it's really lining up now. You know, all the songs are there, and
everything is there. Now, so can I ask you then? In that case, you're saying 6 weeks. How are you going to promote it? And are you now an independent? Are you working with an independent record label?
Yeah. Well, what it is, I've got my own label, but it was just too much work. I couldn't do all the admin and all that stuff. So I signed to a label called Digital Jukebox, and they're going to handle, you know, the manufacturing, and I'm just doing the production and stuff. And Sony Orchard is going to be doing the distribution. So it'll be on all the major platforms, you know, your Spotify and your Apple Music. It'll be on all of that. So
I'm old school. Are you going to have an LP?
Yeah.
I want one signed.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little bit old school in a sense, because I think there's a document, I can't remember the name of it now, that you have to have one of these in order to make albums to sell. It's like, because it's a physical product. But I'm probably going to do for the real heads. I'm going to have to do some plastic or vinyl or whatever.
But you know, it's coming back though, isn't it? They're saying that the vinyl's making a way back now.
The vinyl's coming back.
Absolutely. So. I think it will be back fully in effect. I just, you know, I think people want something that they own, that's got, you know, the names of the people who took part and stuff like that. And I think young kids are looking at it now like, oh, that's prestige. It's almost prestigious to have one record player in the house. So,
and to buy the system and to buy the speakers and to do it individually. It's not provided till you buy a phone and, you know, you just listen to what you got. You're actually making something, a system to play the music, so it becomes something that belongs to you intrinsically.
You know, all of that came from sound system. You know that, right?
Yep, absolutely.
All the hi-fi years, that came from sound system. They've just looked at people building the amplifier and the speakers and playing it out, and they've just gone, how can we do this corporately? Just like drums. I mean, there is no drum company that's African, but you know, I mean, you got Zildjian, Pasty, all of these big drum companies.
Yeah.
There are people in Africa that some of them ride bikes. You know, they got the drums on the bike, and they're doing all the 15 different things. And someone's just looked at it and said, well, you know what we need to do? We need to put the little chrome around it and
condense it.
Indeed. So what's the future hold for you, my dear? What's the future hold for you? That's one of my questions. When you answer that, I've got one more, and then I'm going to leave you alone. So what's the future hold for you, my dear?
Well, I'm putting out products, and I would love, as I say, to for it to be all the people that were involved in Loose Ends to be on this product, you know. But
wonderful.
You know, if that can happen, I'll make it happen. But if not, it'll just be me and Linda and a few of the newer heads that were involved in the last record. You know, I don't really mind. And then after that, hopefully touring, and this time proper touring, you know, with a band, you know, and doing it properly, not doing clubs.
With a proper band, the proper thing.
That's another thing that Virgin did. They made us do PAs throughout maybe 5 years, just doing PAs in clubs. Instead of doing live theatre halls, we were doing PAs. Because PAs are cheap, you know. It's a Cavalier, 3 mic stands and 3 mics, and you're away. Whereas a band, you have to pay musicians, you have to, you know, practice. It's like 2 weeks, and you know, it costs a lot of money. They call it tour support, and they get the money back. The other thing that happened when we started doing our tours was we got to America. We didn't get paid for one show when we were number one. Not one. Wow. It was called promotion.
For any of them, for any of the hits.
One show. And you can imagine being a number one selling act now and just going on stage for free.
My God.
Yeah, there was a women's group recently that said that they were broke because they did not receive any money at all. And I can understand.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
You know, this is why we wanted to have you with us today, Carl.
Because we wanted to talk about the music business and, you know, not the pretty side of all the lovely songs being written, but the reality of writing a song that's a number one in the States, coming across to England, finding that it's being played before you've even released it, and being told that you're not getting a penny for the things that you've done.
And having to go the hard way around it. I mean, it's still fine at the end of the day, and such an iconic band, right?
Didn't matter.
With music that is legendary, you know. But it is also a lesson. And my final one to you is any of the the young people, because as we know right now, I can play music, and somebody's just told me that I'm fantastic and they can sign me. What piece of advice would you give them now?
That's not a last question. That's almost like the first question. But the reason I say this is because record companies are going to go for, I don't mean to sound negative, but record companies are going to go for that whole thing they did with us. They haven't changed. It's get the band as cheap as you can and build them up. If they don't make it, you throw them away. And contracts, because there's a line around the corner for people that want to get signed. So you're not going to get a good contract. I mean, rock groups get good contracts. Some of them get signed and get 250,000. Now that is back in the day. Now there's probably no money in the business for that.
My word.
I know young groups that get signed nowadays. There's this thing called a 360 deal. And the 360 is where they own your publishing, they own your touring rights, they own your recording contract, everything in one deal. It's called 360. It's like the whole thing. And, it's a huge conflict of interest. It's slavery. And to me,
I was thinking that.
Yeah, I feel it for the kids, And some of them, you'll see them on stage. You'll see them. They look great.
Yeah.
And they got money. But that money it's not really theirs. It is theirs, but it can stop at any point. It's no guarantees that money is going to keep rolling in. So, you know, you can't go out and buy a big mansion, because if you go out and buy a big house and your next record isn't a hit, then they're going to stop your money.
They're collecting that.
Yeah, and it's really bad. I think the industry needs a total overhaul.
Right.
The contract. I tell you what, if it was me, my contract, if I was going to sign to a major, my contract would be written in patois. There's a guy in the hills in Jamaica. Go over to him and give him £200 an hour, and he will tell you what it says. Because that's basically what they are doing to us.
Yeah.
We don't know what the contract says. It starts off here to, therefore, herewith, therein. They never taught us that in school. So
absolutely.
We don't know what it is. But then
I'm still trying to work out what is notwithstanding. What the hell? Notwithstanding.
But you know, I mean, that is the issue, isn't it? And for me, I mean, my dad back in the day was a musician. So I understood. And I went to Denmark. Is it Denmark Road? You know, and cut demos. Oh yeah, I've been in the studio. So, but seeing and hearing you, I mean, you've enlightened me today, and I'm hoping everybody else. And it makes you appreciate people like Michael Jackson and Prince. And what's the other guy's name? Michael, was it the Wham guy?
Oh, George Michael.
That's it.
George Michael.
Right? That was able to break away and say, you know what? You're not taking none of my thing. I'm taking everything. You understand?
Yeah.
Hold that these companies have over you. You know, they are such giants, as you say. In order to be able to do that, is commendable.
Yeah. George Michael could do it. Michael Jackson was a star since he was a kid, so you know they could do it. But the average artist, to take your record label to court, it's like cutting your umbilical cord.
Right.
They are going to be the ones that are going to be promoting your next record. So if you're going to take them to court, it's like you may as well look for another label.
Yeah.
And if you do that, they're going to try and sit on you. They're going to say, well, you got 2 more years in your contract, so you can't go to another label. And it's very difficult. I mean, what George Michael did, that he changed the business, because after him, I don't think you can own someone's work for a lifetime no more.
Yes, that was one of the rulings. Yes.
Yeah. So, which is a great thing, because we loose ends. We signed publishing deals that were for life.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, but you know, it was like there was no alternative. It was like take it or leave it. You know, you want it or not. It wasn't like there was a few people around the block saying, "Look, we want loose ends." It was no one. You know. In fact, I think there's only about 4 or 5 groups that was black signed to corporate labels at the time. So you know, you just leave it.
Yeah, I mean, as somebody's just put in the chat there, you know, Michael Jackson and Prince, they paid a heavy price, didn't they, in the end? You know, for that. So you know, but
Michael's interview with Martin Bashir, we were talking about that today. That was it. After that was the end.
Yeah.
The knives came out.
Basically, that's it.
Yeah.
You know, Carl, honestly, it's been, for me, I don't know about him. I mean, you know, you and him go back, right? For me, I'm just trying to hold it together right about now. Okay? Because I cannot listen. It is a pleasure, and to obviously be able to enjoy your music and the band, and it would be lovely, actually, as you said, for the band, you know, the original band, to kind of do a little something. But you know, I know, so that's still something in the workings. But to hear your side and how you started and came through the system has been an eye-opener.
Thank you so much. It's a tough one. It's a tough one. And for artists that are being signed out there, they just got to work as hard as they can. And hopefully there's a way you can improve your contract by having hits. The more hits you have is the more respect you get. The more respect you get, the more your manager can go in there and say, well, we're number one, so, you know, this contract here. I've seen managers for rock bands go into the record company and rip up the contract and just tell them, look, we're going. That brazen. It doesn't happen with that, folks.
No, don't do that. Security be on you, quick.
But
it's an absolute pleasure. I think the last time I saw you, you were on the stage, and I enjoyed it so much. But you were busy after the event. And I've always been the person in the background, so I couldn't go over there to say hi, and that was a regret. So the next time you're playing, the moment I see that you're playing, I'll be up front stage, and when you come off, I'm going to say hello, because I haven't seen you for that.
After all of this madness that we've been going through, when the gigs start up again, you just let me know, you guys, and you won't have to watch me from the crowd. You'll be back. Okay.
That'd be wicked. That'd be wicked.
So much.
Listen, we're gonna pick you up on Black Business Recommendation, where we can just chat. Okay.
When you're ready, just hit me up.
All right.
Thank you so much for your time, and all the best with your music going forward from here.
All right. Thank you, Hugh.
Thank you,
all right.
Bye bye now.
Bye. Take care.
I don't even know how to switch this off. I'm old school.
You know what? Don't worry.
Fine.
We'll get Natasha. She's probably sleeping
Miss
right now.
Natasha will kick you up in a minute.
Kick him out.
Oh my God,
Natasha,
how brilliant was that?
That was fantastic. But we've got a few gentlemen sitting in the background there.
And this is my time.
So this is time for her to leave.
But before I go, guys in the chat, thank you very much for being very patient with us. As you know, when you're going live, we do get these little gremlins, but we sail through. I mean, time is a thing, yeah? We're just here, all right? So now I'm going to leave these guys to have their chat now, all right? And thank you again for being with us. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. See you later.
Take care, my darling. Hello, gentlemen, and Natasha, how you doing? How you doing?
I think I'm all right. I think.
You sure? Have you had a coffee? Have you had a break? Have you had a moment?
Yes, I went to sort out my barnet and I put the kettle on, but I never made a coffee. So I'm going to have that after I finished. And I'm all right now. I refreshed. I cleaned my teeth, freshened up a little bit, and I feel much better.
Well, you know what? I think with Carl being there, if you heard anything in the background, it was well worth the wait. Yeah?
Absolutely.
Because, and we'll make sure that we'll get a few people of his ilk to come in and support what we're doing on a regular basis. So, it's all upwards and onwards,
Amazing. I see how you guys didn't give me a look in for any concert tickets. Just yourselves.
That's my guilty look.
All right, darling.
Whatever happens, there's always family. So we'll always sort out what we can sort out. It's nice.
It was a really good interview. Lovely. Really nice guy.
We spoke about many things, and the time just ran out on us. And I was aware that, maybe some of the gentlemen have disappeared, have not come in because they're just watching. So, who's there?
We have Dr. Carlton Brown, we have Eddie, and we have Rudy.
Okay. Bring them on, gentlemen. Let's do this.
I'm going to disappear, darling. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Hey, gentlemen.
Hey, you. How you doing?
Hello. I'm there. How's things? Are we all in darkness? Wagwan. What happened to the camera?
Undercover.
Right. Put on the camera, man. What to you? Man's in the pajamas, I can't believe it. The man lives in pajamas.
Oh, geez.
Nice to see you. Thank you for staying. I hope what you saw there with Carl sort of gave you an idea of the what people like him have to go through in the industry. You know, because I once in my youth worked with a group of young people who wanted to have their own band. We got them to a point where one of our singers was so good, Michael. Jodeci wanted to take him on board, but he loved what he was doing with us, so he stayed with us. And we went to a record label, and they said they liked what they were doing. But I said to the gentleman, I said to them, don't go for that record label yet, because we need to know the rules, how this thing works. I'd done the research and so on. I said to them, we've got to leave that alone. We've got to build our own momentum. But they heard of all the sweets and cakes that were available, so they went and signed. So what happened? The record label, they then held them while another group of theirs was making it in the charts. And my group were better than that group, but because of that, because that group they had spent money for that group to be in the charts, they held those boys together for 2 years, and then they just disintegrated as a band because they weren't making any money. They couldn't go anywhere. The contract basically said that you can't go out and sing. You can't sing for anyone else. You can't do concerts. So they were basically locked down. So, you know, I understand what Carl was talking about, because when those record labels, they have a system to basically, I'll use the word, I won't use the word, but they have a system to do you in properly. And one of the things they do is to ensure that they have you locked down in a contract, and that's it for you. And no matter what you do, you can't escape. So people move on. So that's a system that they use. And yeah, so Eddie, where are you, my man? Are you in darkness again? He's gone. So how are you, sir? You're just frozen. We are live, and you have just frozen.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. Yeah.
Look, it was interesting. I listened to Carl from Loose Ends, but the whole industry has been rife for decades. It's not just something now. If you remember Elvis Presley, Elvis Presley, you think of all the songs, the famous songs that he got famous for. They said he was the king of rock and roll, but actually, the guy that wrote most of those songs and actually sung them was a guy called Otis Blackwell. Now, if you Google Otis Blackwell, you know, and you just watch a video clip of Otis Blackwell, I mean, even Elvis used to just mirror himself on Otis Blackwell. He took his songs, and Otis Blackwell didn't get a lot of money for this at all.
He did win a case though to sing Elvis's songs, so he had the right, because they finally recognized him as being, you know, the person who wrote the song. So he won the case, but not winning much money though.
Yeah, but at the time though, if you think about it, he was the one that wrote those songs. He was the one who played those songs. He made those songs. But you know, at the time, he couldn't be that face in front of the audience. He couldn't be that black African American face in front of the audience. And despite the brilliance of his writing skills, it's a tragedy. But so that was historical, and it hasn't changed. Well, I don't know the industry very well, but it looks to me like it's still carrying on by the sounds of things, you know.
Yeah.
But don't forget, I've got to be fair. But even in the reggae industry, if you remember watching the film, remember the movie not Smile Orange, or Jimmy Cliff, The Harder They Come. No,
Harder They Come.
Was it The Harder They Come? And he wanted to cut a record.
Babylon.
The Harder They Come. Jimmy Cliff, and he wanted to cut a record. And,
yes.
You know, you got your one-off payment. That was it. You know.
Yes.
And that's where you got your money. You got the record. The record became a hit. That's all you got was your whatever amount of money you took.
That is still the case in the reggae industry, because you got people making a living from selling, you know, their songs as dub plates. Yeah. And sometimes they would make more money from the dub plate than they would from a record that they've released. So so a lot of the artists, they used to literally create a living. Johnny Osborne used to spend time doing dub plates for everybody. I mean, everybody had a Johnny Osborne song,
Yeah,
Sugar Minor, yeah. So he
yeah,
used to go around the circuit doing the dub plates for the sound system, just to have the sound system name linked with Sugar Minor on the dub plate
yeah,
was money
yeah.
to them. So they made that living. So the industry itself didn't give them money. And you look at, Bob Marley and so on were the only ones who made a living from that to that degree. But how much? Because you don't know, because the system was that the record label made the money. Tough Gun Island Records, especially Virgin, when it first started, Virgin started by using the black music industry to create finances for them to create Virgin Records. Because when Virgin Records was down at Fulham, yeah, it was just a small operation, and then they put the Island Records prior to that with Chris Blackwell to make
Yeah.
money for them to grow Virgin Records and so on. So these guys,
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I just saw that, rest in peace, Buddy Whaler. But Buddy Whaler, I saw an interview with Buddy Whaler recently, and he said, one of the reasons why he left the Wailers, he was because of Chris Blackwell, and Island Records. I don't know what the implications were, but clearly something wasn't right, and there were certain moves which were not quite right. But so Buddy Whaler came out and said on record, I left because of those certain things to do with the record company, and maybe it was to do with the contracts or whatever. I don't know. I don't want to cast aspersions on something I'm not factual with, but
absolutely.
He was, so yeah, he was concerned about that. And the industry is I think, when someone has a dream, whether you want to be a footballer, a sports person, or a musician, or something like that, you've got this dream, and the power lies with someone else. You just do everything in your power to try and get there. And when they go, yeah, there you go, yeah, it's the opportunity's here, but you've got to take it this way. And because you're so desperate to do well and to achieve something, you'll take something, not realizing what you're signing up to
in order for you to survive. Yeah, and that's where we are. That's where we are within a system of government here, in which we know what we want to do, but unfortunately, the rules and regulations are such that they prevent us from going our own way. And so, what we are, unless you, like someone like yourself in your own business, and me working for the local authority, our dimensions are totally opposed, because you have, to a certain degree, a freedom to do what you want to do. You can be inspired by things and create. Well, in the local authority, there is a diktat to what you actually do. This is it. This is how the system runs. And, to a certain degree, you would say that the many different agencies within a local authority or a government, they are working on just one premise: get that done, which is politically expedient to their needs and not to the local community. So when I look at things and I say, how do black men live in this country and make decisions to support themselves? We first of all have to sit down and have a conversation. Yeah. Now, today is a typical example of that, because a lot of yeses to be done to say, yes, we want to do, but circumstances happen. And then what you find is people slowly ebb away. Yeah. So we as black men need to start thinking, how seriously do we take ourselves? And how do we portray to our young people that we take ourselves seriously enough to say, this is what we should be doing? I've been in situations where I've spoken to men about the development of our young people, and our young people are moving forward. One young person said to me that we don't need you because you effed it up for us, so we're doing it ourselves. Now that's a dilemma, because I had to sit down there and just take that on board and say, maybe one of the things we didn't communicate with our youngsters. We didn't, we're not talking about our family. We're talking about the community as a whole. What are we doing to communicate with young people? So that's an open door question for you.
I think sometimes, though, I think that there are lots of people I think in the community what are doing well, but I think we still live to a large extent, I think we live in silos, that we stick to the people which, I'm doing all right, Jack, but I'm over here and I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. But over there, you guys, you just do your thing over there. I don't think that we share enough. We don't share enough role models, people which are doing good things, not just sports personalities or people who do well in the music industry, but there are lawyers out there, and there are doctors out there. There is people running their own businesses out there. There are good teachers, educators out there. There are lecturers. I don't even have to. There are people which are doing great stuff in the community. If you just think about Professor Les Henry, for example, he's a great activist and a great, scholar. There is people doing some great things in the community. Brother Andrew Muhammad, for example. People are doing some great stuff out there, but we need to share that knowledge.
Yeah.
And show people that people are doing good stuff. It's not just about keeping it to yourselves. But sometimes sometimes I've got to say we're sometimes our own worst enemy. Well, you can say, what a weird bossy. Look at him, look at you, look how way he's and we still have that. Sometimes we have our own distrust in our own communities. There's a lack of trust sometimes, and it's that old mantra that sometimes we see things and we don't like to see other people in the community succeeding. There's an issue there as well. But
isn't that issue somewhat something that has been brought to us from the very, and I'm going to use the word I don't like saying, slavery. We have been tampered with to such a degree that psychologically our thought patterns are almost, I saw this as a situation with a woman of 60 years old. She was in the care system, and I'm working with this woman, and she is one of our cousins, right? And for her, because she was in the care system, right? She's grown up, she's a teacher, and for her, she hoards everything. She doesn't want to share it, right? Because for her, at last, she has something that is tangible for her, right? We are in a kind of situation where our mindset is we have been denied so much that we are hoarding everything, even down to a person saying to you, a black person saying to you, yeah, man, there's a Chris biscuit shop, me know this, so me not tell you nothing. I might shop that, right? Now, that has an effect on the business, because the whole idea is that you share that information so that business can continue. Yeah, but we have a mindset of wanting to keep to ourselves, and this is why I joined in with Natasha and the Black Million campaign, which is to raise our money to create something for ourselves, right? By collaborating and utilizing the words collaboration, not competition, because our egos actually affect the way that we deal with each other. Yeah. So that's my piece at the moment.
No, but I think there's several things. I think that there is a syndrome. They call it, you've heard of post-traumatic stress disorder, right? Which psychologists have coined that term. That after you experience a trauma, it can still live with you. Now, there's a term which I can't remember the doctor's name, African American doctor who's coined the term, but post-traumatic slave syndrome. And what she says is this, that we are intergenerationally conditioned over time. So if you think about it, we are still suffering from, sometimes low self-esteem, low expectations of ourselves, because we've been conditioned over a period of time to believe in a certain way, to act in a certain way, to have lower expectations of oneself. All of these things are consequences of. So now, remember, and I listened to a talk by a guy called Brother Andrew Muhammad, and he said, what you learn, you must unlearn, right? So if you think about that, you've been conditioned over long periods of time your grandparents, your parents, etc., to believe that you're not worthy, you're not successful, you're not good at doing something. But actually, if you think about some of the greatest feats in history, we've created. We are exceptional as a race of people. We, as Professor Les Henry says, out of the fountain of blackness, the whole world is drinking. That's what he says. In other words, there's a fountain everything flows from. That's what he says. So if you think about that logically, the pyramids, people still can't fathom out how to build the pyramids today. They can't.
They're trying to work it out with all the machinery that they have. I think they got close to the big stone in the middle now. They're close to that one in the heart of the pyramid.
But if you think about it as well, things such as, we walk down the street today. Every time you look at the traffic lights and you get stopped, that's something, we've created. There's so many things in history. We could just talk about, the first heart, patient, the lawnmower you law your garden with, all of those things. But I think, going back to what I was saying, we don't have sufficient role models to share success with, whatever that looks like. Success doesn't have to mean you're a multi-millionaire. It doesn't have to mean that. You could be, as I said, a successful running your own business. You could be a successful carpenter running. You could be an educator, educating others, or a doctor. All of these are things that we need to show more of and value within our community, and not just keep it to ourselves, because we learn quite often what we call vicariously through others. So if we see success in somebody else, we can say, well, you know what? He's doing well. He's come from the same estate I've come from. I've grown up in a particular way with no money, no resources. But guess what? This brother's made it, or this sister's made it. And if they can do it, so can I. So we need to just share more success. That's how I see it. We're going to just share success.
So here's a question then, because I've seen this happen. A man doing well, a black man doing well, and checks himself. That, I shouldn't be doing this good. It's literally like, wait, I'm doing too well. Need to slow it down a little bit, because I don't want people to see that I'm doing, this in a good way. Yeah. And the other thing, for myself personally, I walk on the premise that I work in a school and everybody, we're casual, smart, and so on. But I make sure I put on a shirt, a tie, a jumper, trousers, crisp shoes. So I'm looking the part, because I want to leave a legacy for that child's mind, that there was a black man that you don't see many in the schools, and he was dressed in a particular way. They may not remember my name after many years, but they remember who I was by my footsteps. Because I feel that it's important that as a black man, you're trying to show to our young people that you have a certain standard, that which you are not going to go below. And so, even on a sports day, I'll be dressed, and then I'll take off that, put on a tracksuit, right? Do the sports and get back dressed. So, I smell good, look good for them. It's not for myself, it's for them. And I think in terms of us working with young people, we have to set the standard. And I'm afraid that, a lot of us, one of the standards is to say, sorry, I was wrong. Can we learn together? Because that tells someone, this person is not just saying, I am correct, I'm right all the time. That person is saying, we can learn together. Teach me, because I'd like to teach you. Because we don't communicate in that kind of way as men, to our youngers or to each other. Yeah, so that's where I'm at. Is that my thinking for the Black Business Recommendation, for whatever I do, is I work on the premise, I don't know it all. I sincerely believe only a fool knows it all, right? So from that point on, if you say you know it all, you go ahead.
No, that's true. You're right. We don't know it all, and I think we do need to share success and value that within the community in general terms. But also we have to be open to it. We have to have the. You talked about mindset. There was a woman, a professor called Carol Dweck, and she said that there's two types of people. One person who has a fixed mindset says, "Boy, you know what? You know, this is what this is my talent. This is what I'm capable. That's what I'm capable of doing." But others see, I can grow. If I can try something, I can learn. I can grow. And as a result of trying and failing and learning and there's no such thing as failing, but just learning. 'Cause it's experience. So when you learn something, you learn and you grow, you become better ultimately because you keep trying and you make progress by doing so. And you can't take shortcuts. It's one of these things. You can't just say, well, I want instant gratification. I want to get success overnight, because it doesn't happen. No. Take the time, work hard, be industrious, get an education, learn, mix with others who've got the similar mindsets to you. Because that's another thing which we have to be conscious of. There will be people that you and I know who don't have the same expectation or certain goals for you as for themselves. They have a lower expectations of themselves. Now, sometimes you can't help that individual. You can't. But there's others out there who want to succeed and want to. So align yourself with people who want to make something of themselves, because it will help you. And the more of you have got the same mindset, you can go on that same journey. It is a process, but but you need to align yourself with the right people with the right sort of mindset, because that's what's going to help you. Not the ones who say, well, look at you, look how he's doing. But you know what, do you really sure you want to do that? I can tell you, when I went to study and I started to study again, I told a couple of my friends I was going back to do my master's and I was doing my PhD. Some of them said, why are you doing that for? Why are you doing that? Just in the virtue of that question, why are you doing that, told me something. As opposed to saying, well, you know what, that's brilliant, that's good. I don't even know what you're talking about right now, but just keep doing what you're doing. Keep that blessing going. But for you keeping that blessing going and you're doing something, it may encourage someone else to do the same thing. And as they say, as one grow, we all grow, right? You've heard that saying, as one grow, we all grow. So the more we can perpetuate that, it's going to be important,
Absolutely. You see, one of the things about the growth is, you said it earlier about failure, but I had the conversation with a student on Thursday, and she put so much pressure on herself to not fail that she actually missed the big picture. She wanted to go to a school in which she needed a certain amount of grades to get in, and if she didn't get it, she was already at 6, and really good condition for her to get into the school, but she wanted to get 7, and anything other than 7 was a failure to her. She had never actually sat down and thought, okay, at my age, I can learn this, and if I make a mistake, I can look at what I did wrong and correct it through a process of elimination. Work on that, reflect upon it, and to move forward, right? She also did not look at the fact that she wanted to go to the school as a sixth former, right, to meet her friends. But then when I said to her, how long do you reckon you will stay friends with those people? Because I have school friends who I haven't seen for 20 years, right? Well, actually, 15 years, because I'm kind of young. Right? But, I haven't seen for many years, because for her mindset was, I'm going there to do whatever I'm doing to meet with them and to be friends with them. When I said to her, okay, think of it this way. Those people now, today, you are so lucky because you've got the internet and access to all manner of mechanisms to actually communicate with those people. They are more likely to be gone in 3 years. You may never see them again. Where do you stand then? Because you haven't done what you need to do, which was to put your education first, and not the fact that you're going to go to see them. So the thought processes, are not the correct thought processes. So
in the first
you
place,
have to reflect on your own actions. On, that's where I actually look at how things operate for me, because